a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a alcohol-free Sunday early afternoon tag instead of a wine-infused Sunday evening tag for you. This one's a serious one, so no alcohol for this one at all. I have a cup of coffee to keep me going. This is the Shithole Countries Tag. The originator is Diana in Color, whose channel I just discovered today, and I will have a link to her original tag video in the show notes. I noticed the tag on Elaine's channel, Books by Lanes. That link is also in the show notes. So Diana created this tag in the light of the infamous, deeply offensive comments by the current Nazi-sympathizing, adulterous, rapey, corrupt occupant of the White House, who shall remain unnamed, but here's the New Yorker cover commemorating his latest linguistic abomination. And I've copied and pasted her description in the show notes, so she created it to fight back and to talk about books from these quote-unquote shithole countries. And I just think that's such a marvelous idea, and I wanted to do it immediately. She tagged several people on her video, as did Elaine, but Diana said it was an open tag and anybody could do it, so here I am. So first I'm going to talk about a few books that I've read from the shithole country. So if you don't know, the countries that Trump talked about in such an offensive manner were specifically Haiti, El Salvador, which I didn't actually know until I saw this tag that he had singled out El Salvador, but Haiti, El Salvador, and Africa as a whole, because he probably thinks it's one country, like his main supporter. What was that crazy woman from Alaska's name? Anyway, I don't have room in my tired old brain for useless information. So I'm going to talk about books I've read from those countries. I have not read any books from El Salvador, and I am counting on you guys to recommend me. I found one that I will talk about at the end of the video, but please give me a recommendation. I know nothing about El Salvadorian literature. The first book I want to tell you about, and this is probably the only one of the ones that I've read that I'm going to talk about at length because I want to keep this video short. And I have not talked about this book yet on my channel. This is my favorite book out of Africa. It's not the book out of Africa. It's my favorite book from Africa. We Need New Names by Noviolet Bulawayo, the 2013 novel. Booker nominated, I believe. I read it in 2016. I did it on audio, actually. And the writing is so beautiful, and it's a wrenching story about a young girl growing up in basically the slums in Harare, a shanty town. Their family and their neighborhood were displaced onto the shanty town by the government, and they're living in abject poverty, and she and her friends are running around. They're stealing guavas from the richer neighbors a few blocks away and trying to survive. The writing is just achingly beautiful. About halfway through, she emigrates to America, and I found that half a little bit less engaging, but still really, really great. But the first half of it, it just wormed its way into my heart, and still there. And Noviolet, when's your next book coming out? I love this so much. We Need New Names. Very briefly mention this. I'm still reading it. Welcome to Lagos by Chibundo Unuzo. I'm about 40% through. Quite enjoying it. It's about a motley crew of 2 deserter soldiers, a rebel, and a bunch of other people that make their way to Lagos looking for work. The writing is really good. I'm really enjoying it. I think it might end up being a 4-star read, but I'm certainly enjoying it very much. Nigerian novelist. It's her second novel, I believe. I think the quality of her prose matches the next writer I'm going to tell you about, and I did this on ebook, and that was my very first Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie novel, her debut, Purple Hibiscus. iBooks had a sale about a year ago on all of her ebooks, and I got them all for about $15 or something like that. So I started with Purple Hibiscus last year. I loved it, and I'm going to go through the rest in sequence. I don't think Purple Hibiscus needs any introduction, but nor does Chimamanda Adichie. Just an amazing writer. Last year I also read my first book by Edwidge Danticat, a Haitian writer, a collection of short stories called Crick Crack. I enjoyed the stories a lot, but I didn't find that formally they were, in the way that they played with the form of the short story, that they were particularly interesting, but thematically very interesting. I thought, as I was reading them, that I would probably enjoy her novels more, and I won't mention them again when I get down to talking about the novels I want to read, but I very much want to read more by Danticat. I also read a book of short stories by Roxane Gay, Haiti. It might be her debut, but certainly one of her early works, and many of these short stories were set in Haiti. I was prepared not to like her fiction because of all the hype, but I really liked it, yeah. The hype is true. She's a great writer. I haven't had a chance to talk about this on my channel. This is a book that defies and upsets and turns upside down all of the criteria by which I judge fiction. Season of Crimson Blossoms by Abubakar Adam Ibrahim, a Nigerian novel, 2016 novel, set in conservative northern Nigeria, largely Muslim area, and there's a 55-year-old Nigerian widow who starts a steamy, but also not just steamy, but steamy, deeply emotional love affair with a 25-year-old drug dealer in her neighborhood, and keeps it a big secret from all of her family. I really like this novel, but I didn't like the writing. The writing was not awful, but it was subpar. There was even like 4 or 5 grammar mistakes. So that's not many, but for a published work of fiction, that's too many. But more importantly, the prose didn't sing, but the story still leapt off the page. I've never experienced that before or since, where I didn't care for the prose, but still really liked the story. So I think Ibrahim could develop his writing skills, but putting that aside, and I've never said this before or since, and yet I'm sure you'll never hear me say this about any other book, it's a masterful novel, despite the writing. So, I wanted to say that for a while, because it just completely upends the way that I talk about books and the reason that I bail on books and why I do or don't like something. Oh, and he's also pretty hot, and I may or may not have once drunkenly sent him a flirtatious tweet late one night. Moving on. So, the rest are the books that I very much want to read. I'm going to prioritize the ones I already own because I'm on a very strict book buying budget this year, at least until autumn. But Ben Okri, The Famished Road, it won the Booker Prize some years ago. I did a page 112 tag on this book, and the page 112 was the most exciting page 112 I've done yet. I think I'm going to start this next month. Another Nigerian writer. This one I just happened to pick up for cheap in Tokyo, secondhand, Waiting for the Rain by Charles Mungoshi, Rhodesian or Zimbabwean writer. I don't know, was this published post 1975, so is that Rhodesia still, or is that Zimbabwe? I've forgotten. But anyway, I hauled this in a video already. The main character's about to go overseas. His family, his traditional family, don't want him to go. Another old South African novel, Alex Laguma, In the Fog of the Season's End. It's set in apartheid South Africa. That's all I know. I talked about this in a recent video about 2018 releases I'm looking forward to. This is another Nigerian novel set in America about a Nigerian student studying in America, and he's gay. It's called Speak No Evil by Uzodinma Iweala. There isn't a lot of gay fiction that I'm aware of from Africa other than South Africa, which I didn't clarify that last time. And so I'm really excited about this. I read Iweala's Beasts of No Nation about 10 or 11 years ago and quite liked it too. And this, I believe, is his second novel. So very excited about that. Joss, over at Squibbles Reads, just brought this novel to my attention, and to find her spiel on it, you have to go to Russell of Ink and Paper Blog's channel. Just today or yesterday, he put up a video of him and Joss, and I don't know the woman's name, but her booktube channel is Possibly Literate, in a bookstore in San Francisco, talking books. And Joss, on that video, told me about this, and it's got... At the end of last year, I did a crazy Besties and Worsties video, and one of my categories was the best title. This is a strong contender for the best title this year. Listen to this title. Like a Mule Bringing Ice Cream to the Sun by Sarah Ladapo Manika. Published in 2016, a very short little novella. It's about a 75-year-old Nigerian woman living this almost like a socialite life, but being a social butterfly living in San Francisco until she has a fall and then her mobility is impaired. It sounds just like that. If that isn't a Sean book, I don't know what a Sean book is. And it's on Scribd, so I'm probably going to read it next month too, if I don't actually fit it in this month. Like a mule bringing ice cream to the sun. I read a memoir by Ngũgĩ wa Thiong'o. What's the title? Dream Weaver this year. I didn't love it because I find memoir often quite boring, and this one was. Even though the story was interesting, the writing wasn't. But it introduced me to him as a writer, and it was about his becoming a writer, but still, just don't do memoir or autobiography that much. But I'm very curious about his fiction, and I expect that I will love his fiction. So I'm going to start with his debut from 1964, Weep Not Child, and it's about the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya. So I hope to get to that this year. I don't know if I'll get to all these books this year. Like I say, I'm constrained from buying a lot of books, and to me it doesn't matter if I get to them all this year, but they're all books that I want to read. Next is another Zimbabwean novel, The Hairdresser of Harare by Tendai Huchu, a 2010 novel. It's about exactly what the title says, a hairdresser in Harare, observing all the goings-on, most of which probably aren't pretty, in Harare. This one just came out last month in December 2017, Mouths Don't Speak by Katia D. Ulesi, a Haitian writer, and this is a book about, I believe, a Haitian-American woman who had left Haiti 25 years before, but comes back after the recent earthquake, after the big earthquake recently, 4 or 5 years ago or whenever, because her parents were killed in that earthquake. So a very heavy story, which I like. And this is the one novel from El Salvador I managed to find out about today just by kind of Googling around. It's called Tyrant Memory by Horacio Castellanos Moya, published in 2008. My dive wasn't deep enough to find out if that was the original Spanish publication date or the translated date, but let me just read you a little blurb. The tyrant of this ambitious new novel is the actual pro-Nazi mystic Maximiliano Hernandez Martinez, known as the Warlock, who came to power in El Salvador in 1932. An attempted coup in April 1944 failed, but a general strike in May finally forced him out of office. Tyrant Memory takes place during the month between the coup and the strike. That sounds fascinating. Anybody read this guy, Horacio Castellanos Moya? Read this book? I'm very curious. And also, again, please recommend any El Salvador fiction to me. So that's what I wanted to talk about. This is an open tag, as the creator, Diana, said. But I am going to specifically tag the following people because I think they would probably have read a lot of books from these quote-unquote shithole countries and have a lot to offer, as this tag spreads through BookTube. So even if I'm not specifically tagging you, please contribute. But I would really love to hear from Mel at Mel's Bookland Adventure, Jen at Remembered Reads, Joss at Scribbles Reads, Kendra Winchester. I don't know if these last three people really do tags, and I'm hesitant to tag them, but I'm going to anyway because they're so widely read, and I think they would have so many books they could tell us about. Eric Carl Anderson, Camel at Camel Reads, and Sophie at Portal in the Pages. That's it. Thanks for watching.